Good Erev Shabbos, everyone. Welcome as we are dedicated by A.B. Spry for learning of Bavas, that all his children should be healthy Bavas. By Shalom Fogeli, Lenishmas Rabbi Yaakov Zeb and Rabbi Yehuda Aye, Rivka Bas Rabbi Yaakov Yosef, Tzivya Miriam Bas Rabbi Gad, Rabbi Yosef ben Tzion ben Rabbi Yaakov Zev. By Baruch Ian, Le'ilei Nishmas, Yaakov Chaim ben Abba, Esther Bas Gittel, and Avram ben Shmuel HaKohen, by Yaakov Yemansky, with Akar Satov to the Rav, and the Zoom family, and Nachas from children and grandchildren, but Ed Salah from London, and Joshua Rosenberg, a virtual Talmud. We learn L'Rafur Shalema for Shimon Yehuda ben Gittel. Okay, we on this Guten Erev Shabbos already. It's already Erev Shabbos, and by the way, as Yitzi Muller has already, I see, listened to, for the Shabbos table, Matas Masli is up and running. And by the way, already now on YouTube is an hour and 32 minute, the Q&A is on YouTube as well. I managed to get it. Got it from Eretz Yisrael and got it to here. We welcome in Yitzi Muller. We welcome in Saba. And at the Agudas Yisrael of Fairways, I see Berish Gesseman, I see Rich Lenner, I see Ruvain Shannon, and I think that's it for now, right? Oh, Gedali Engel? Oh, Gedali Engel is there. I feel much better knowing that he's there. David Helfgott, by the way, is joining us on Kol HaLoshen, and we have Dr. Block, Mel Zachter, and A.B. Spry is joining us. That's great to have you, A.B. Nachman Chapler, Dr. Guy, Yitz Fuchs, Baruch Ian, Yisrael Fisher, and the incredible wandering Jew, Eddie Chazan, Yisrael Meir Kaplan, Aaron Swade, Chaim Kramer, Rabbi Kranz, Ben Zion Cohn, Shalom Fogel, Aaron Swade, Moshe Lehman, Ilya Shutman, Abe Arbach, and we've just been joined by Stephen Holtzman. So wonderful to see all of you this wonderful evening. We are going to, this next piece of Gemara employs, and Michal Akta has just joined us, it employs an idea that helps us understand one of the difficult concepts in Shas. It says, Elu ve'elu divrei Elikim chayim. Both are considered the word of the living God. And we always struggle with that. How could, there's only one halacha. So how could they be, if the word of Hashem, Chaysamay Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is emes, how could two opposing positions be both the word of God? One has to be true and one has to be false. How could the word of God is emes? How could it be elu ve'elu divrei Elikim chayim? So the next Gemara is a example of this idea, because sometimes, even if we don't paskin like one view, we do take a kernel from it and apply it to the other view. So we're actually taking svaris from both opinions. Each one has an element of truth in it. Now here, let me show you how this works over here. Amar Rabbi Yishmael Bamed Mamurim, and if you want to know where we're up to, we are 5 lines from the bottom of Daf Lamed Vav Amid Beis as we welcome in Shragi. So, Amar Rabbi Yishmael, welcome Shragi. Amar Rabbi Yishmael, Bamed Mamurim B'Stei Lovin. Where do you need to have 3 years? If it's a Stei Lovin, remember I told you Stei Lovin is a grain field, because it's considered a white field, because since there's no trees, there's no shade. So it's completely basked in the light of the sun. That's why it's called the Stei Lovin. But Rabbi Yishmael says if it's an orchard, and in the orchard there are date palms, there are vines, and there are olive trees, so if you cut the dates vintage the grapes and prune the olives in 1 year, it's a chazaka. And the Rabbanan say you need to have through 3 years. But he says that if you do 3 crops, then it could be a chazaka from those 3 crops. Now, but what? Although we don't paskin like Rabbi Yishmael, but Rabbi Yishmael is showing us an idea that you don't have to make a chazaka each time in the entire field, because at the time that you're cutting the dates, you're not using the vines and you're not using the olives. And at the time you're cutting the olives, you're pruning the olives, you're not using the other 2. And you see that's okay. So the Gemara says it would be the same thing according to the Rabbanan if you have a field with 30 saplings, and each year only 10 of the saplings grow, and you harvest all the saplings that are growing. So the first year you do 10, the second year you do another 10, and the third year you do the final 10. So, and the Gemara will say 2 important caveats to this case. The first caveat is that the 10 each year has to be spread around the whole field, because the Gemara says the same way is true by the vines. They're spread around the whole field, and the olive trees are spread around the whole field. And that in the first year only 10 grow, because if 30 grew and you only harvested 10, then you're not ma'azekei k'dema'azekei inshe. But in the event, I know this is very verbose, but I got to give you the whole picture over here. In the event that only 10 grow, and you did 10 1 year, and 10 the second year, and 10 the third year, we extrapolate from Rabbi Yishmael that you could do a chazaka even though it's not throughout the whole field. Because when you are cutting the dates, you're not making a chazaka on the figs, on the vines. And when you cut the vines, you're not making a chazaka on the olives or on the dates. So says the Gemara, let's see it inside. Amr Abaya mid Rabbi Yishmael, from Rabbi Yishmael's opinion, nishma l'Rabbanan. We could extrapolate something for the Rabbanan. What is it? Hayaloi shloishim ilanos. You have 30 saplings, mimta asara lebeis sa, and they're distributed 10 to a beisa, which is distributed properly. Achal asara b'shana, if you harvested 1 the first year, 10 the first year, because that's all that produced. V'asara b'shana zu, and 10 the second year. V'asara b'shana zu, and 10 the third year. Harizu chazaka, because lavmi amar Rabbi Yishmael, chad pei ravi chazaka l'kulu. When you do the cutting of the dates, it's a chazaka on the entire field, even though at that point you're not vintaging the vines and you're not pruning the olives. Hachanami hani avi chazaka lahani. The 10 that grow are a chazaka for the other 20. Vahani avi chazaka lahani. And the next year the 10 that grew is a chazaka for the other 20. But hani mili, this, as I said, there's 2 conditions. Vahani mili echad apiku. That's only if the other 20 didn't produce. But if they produced and you just didn't harvest it, that makes you look like a crook who was afraid to be in the field for the whole time. Because then you weren't ma'azik and ma'azikei inche. And furthermore, as I told you, the 10 that you harvest had to be distributed throughout the field, not just in one area. Now, the rest of today's daf, It's good to see 28 Zoomers here already this evening. Sans, Marshall is here. I didn't see Marshall sneak in. How could I miss?
How'd you miss me?
I don't know. I can't. Dressed like a con. I have no idea how I missed you. You got to see him here in an orange suit. Looks like he just got out of Otisville.
Take me out of Rikers.
Oh, you look like Pablo Harris.
Yeah.
You're just jealous, Al. You need an orange shirt.
Now, the next Gemara is a question of, in this case, let's just pick somebody out of a hat. This is an unlikely person to pick, but Abi and Marshall. Now, Abi has a chazak on the land, and Marshall has a chazak on trees. The question is, Marshall's chazak on the trees, does it extend also to give him some rights to the land? That if the trees die, he could plant other trees? And that he could work around the trees? Or could Abi say, look, just like I don't have any rights in the trees, you don't have any rights in the land. If your trees die, sayonara. And don't expect to use my land to work around the trees. So that's the initial subject over here. So let's see it inside. Marshall has a chazak on the trees. And Abi has a chazaka on the ground. Amar Rav Zvid, so Rav Zvid says, now Rav Zvid is not a fan of Marshall. Amar Rav Zvid, so Rav Zvid says, which is understandable, Amar Rav Zvid, Zekon Ilonis, Marshall owns the trees, V'zekon karka, and Abi gets the karka. That means that Marshall has all the fruit from the tree, but if something should happen and the tree dies, Abi could say, Akar iloncha, and get out. So Rav Papa doesn't sit well with that. Rav Papa is a very fair-minded person. Rav Zid is actually also. But anyway, Rav Papa says, I don't understand that Marshall, who has a complete chazak on the trees, is so short-lived that if it dies, he has to vacate the area. He doesn't have any rights even to the ground underneath the tree. And then Abi would then be able to tell Marshall, if his tree dies, uproot your tree, shkal, take it, vizil, and vacate the premises. That doesn't sit well with Rav Papa, as we welcome in Daniel Rosenberg for our 30th Zoomer of the evening. That's really nice. Says the Gemara, Elo Amar Rav Papa. Rav Papa says no. Zekolna ilonais v'chatzi karka. Now the Rashbam says chatzi is of course not literal. Zekon ilonais, Marshall gets the trees and a percentage of the karka, meaning he gets the area underneath it that if it dies he could replant the tree, and he also gets an area, as we welcome in Mo Kushner for our 31st Zoomer of the evening. Welcome, Mo. Mo, I saw a beautiful picture of a family gathering of yours. It was very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. You should have many of those in Mitzvah Hashem.
Well, they all came to Florida to visit me. Thank you.
I was very, very happy to see that.
Thank you so much.
And you look great in the picture also.
Thank you so much, brother.
So says the Gemara. Rather says the Gemara, Zekoni Ilonis v'chatzi karka. Marshall gets the trees and a percentage of the land to work around the tree, and also if the trees die to replant it. V'zeh koni chatzi karka, and Abi gets the rest of the karka. Now let's talk about. I should introduce you to a famous machlokes. We'll have it later in the Masechta, and that machlokes is whether we say moicher ba'ayin yafa moicher or moicher ba'ayin ra'a moicher. The din is that if I sell Dr. Block a house, I retain for myself the bar vidus. I retain for myself any underground well or any overground cistern. The question is, do I retain also the right of way to get to my bar and thus, or did I reserve the right of way for myself? So we'll see that Rabbi Akiva says, Moicher ba'ayin yafa moicher. I sell generously, and I sell everything to Dr. Block, and if I want to get to the right of way, I have to pay for it. I would have to pay to enter Dr. Block's premises to get to my bar v'dus. While the Rabbanan say, no way, I kept the bar v'dus, I kept the right of way too, because Moicher ba'ayin ra yafa, I sell stingily. So that's a machlokes by bar v'dus. Now we're going to see how this, I don't know what possessed me, but I'm doing business with Marshall. As we welcome back Chaim Kramer, okay?
Stay away from a good thing, right?
It must have been Purim. I was intoxicated. But anyway, anyway, I sell Marshall land, and I keep for myself the apple trees. So the Gemara says it's obvious that I keep the ground underneath and the ground around it. Pshita mocha karka, if I sell Marshall my land, v'shayri lonas lefonav, and I keep the apple trees for myself, yesh karka. And in this case, that's even according to Rabbi Akiva, who says usually a moicher is moicher ba'ayin yafa, and I sell even the right of way. Va'afilu Rabbi Akiva dam a moicher ba'ayin yafa moicher. Hani mili gabi bar v'dus, where I kept for myself the well, the cistern. The loy michishu ba'arab. That doesn't do any harm to the ground. It doesn't do any harm to the property around it. I'm not worried about Marshall trying to get rid of me, so I could sell generously. Aval inonis, by trees, in the case of the trees, the trees weaken Marshall's surrounding ground, and the roots block his plow. So I know he's not going to want me. And as soon as it dies, he's going to say vamus. He's going to say get rid of it. There shiurei shairi. There I certainly kept the land underneath it and around it for myself. Diloi shayir, because if I don't, knowing Marshall, Lema Marshall will say as soon as the tree dies, akar ilana vizil. Get rid of your tree and pack out vamus. Now, what about the other way? Machar ilanos. I sold Marshall the trees, v'shayir karka lefonav, and I kept the ground for myself. Now comes the question: did I sell him the land under the trees, or did I only sell him the trees as long as they're alive? So here, the Gemara says, this is dependent on the machlokes Rabbi Akiva and Rabbana. That's plukta Rabbi Akiva Rabbanan. Rabbi Kiva, according to Rabbi Kiva, that I sell generously, then I sell to him the land under the trees too. Islay. L'Rabbanan Leslay. According to Rabbanan, that say Moicher ba'ayin ra Moicher, that I sell stingily, then Leslay, I don't sell it to him now. Now what the Gemara does is an interesting thing. The Gemara now tries to attach this to the machlokes about where remember, where Abi had a chazak on the karka, and Marshall had a chazak on the trees. So Rav Zvid said that Marshall only gets the trees, and when they die, he has to pack out, and Abi has the full land, while Rav Papa said, no, Marshall gets the trees and a percentage of the land, and Abi gets the rest of the land. So here the Gemara says, L'Rabbi Kiva Islay, when I sell Marshall only the trees, according to Rabbi Kiva, who holds Ayin Yafa, Marshall gets the land underneath the trees and the land immediately around it. Va'afilu Rav Zvid, and even according to Rav Zvid, that says, when Abi had a chazak on the land and Marshall had a chazak on the trees, he doesn't get the land. Da'amar ein lai. Hani mili gabe shnei lekuches. That's in the case where I sold the land to Abi and the trees to Marshall. Da'amar lei, because Abi says to Marshall, Ki eichi d'ledidi Leslie bi'lanis, just like I don't have any share in the trees at all. L'didach nami, you also leslach b'karka. You don't have any rights in the ground. Aval hacha, but over here where I sold just to Marshall the trees, according to Rabbi Kiva, we say Moicher b'ayin yafa Moicher. I sell generously, and therefore I sold them the land under the trees and immediately around the trees as well. L'Rabbanan Leslay. The Rabbanan who hold Moicher b'ayin ra, they hold that Marshall doesn't get any land. If it dies, goodbye. Va'afil Rav Papa, and even according to Rav Papa, in the case where I sold the land to Abi and the trees to Marshall, we say that Marshall gets a percentage of the land. Va'afil Rav Papa da'amar yeshlai, hani mili gabe shnei lekuchais. Da'amar lei, because Marshall says, Ki eichi didach zavin ba'ayin yafa. Marshall says to Abi that just like you get the land and it's always yours, you get it forever. So l'didi nami zavin ba'ayin yafa. So Rabbi Weiss sold me the trees also that I should have it forever. Aval hacha, but over here where I just sold Marshall the trees, I sell stingily ba'ayin ra, Moicher ba'ayin ra Moicher, and therefore he gets no land. As soon as the trees die, he has to pull them out, and he is history. Now, the Nardai, don't get too attached to the Gemara's initial interpretation of this, because the Gemara is going to reinterpret it. But initially, remember we said the normal way to plant is to plant saplings, 10 saplings to a saw. Here the saplings were planted 15 to a saw, or 30 to 2 saw. Now, in such a case, the normal thing is that this is a nursery, and they're uprooted and repotted, because it's not healthy to grow them so densely. So, Imrei Nardoi, Achlon Ritzufin, if you use them 3 years, the way you are. In other words, this land was initially mine. And Marshall occupies it and harvest the 30 saplings densely planted the way they are, ain't like chazaka. That's not a good chazaka. Why? Because he's not ma'azik to the ma'azikei inshe. He's not doing a good chazaka. Normally, the owner would repat them because it's not healthy to grow them that way. So Rava says that can't be pshat. Maskula rapapa ela ma'atra hay meishra da aspasta. A bed of haspasta. Now, they would plant this animal food, very dense, and then they would, a lot of times, repot it. But sometimes they would do it 3 years, harvest it this way. But according to you, b'may kanila, how do you acquire it? Since it's not malzik to the malzikei inshe, because the normal way to do it is after a while is to repot it and plant it more spread out. But yet the halacha is that if you use it 3 years densely, it is a good chazaka. So here it should also be a good chazaka. So the Gemara concedes that. The Gemara says it is a good chazaka. What was the statement? Ela amar rava machron ritzufin. If I sell to Marshall 30 saplings on 2 sa, ain't like karka. He has no claim to the land. Because there it's clear that I'm selling it to him, that he should repot it somewhere else. Amar Reb Zera, so Reb Zera says that's not universal. That's ketanoi. It's interesting. This is a sugya that we touched upon in the Chok earlier this week when we learned day 1 of Mitzayra, and we learned the 4th parak of Kloyim. Normal vineyards have a distance of 4 amas between each row. Now it makes an afkamina because if it has a din of a vineyard, you can't plant other seeds there unless you distance it 4 amas. If it's not a vineyard, if it's only single vines, then you could plant something else within 6 tfachim. So kerem shu netua al pachas me arba amas, a vineyard that's planted with less than 4 amas in between each vine. Reb Shimon Aimeina kerem, it doesn't have a din of a vineyard because it's too densely planted. And therefore, if you would plant grain next to one of the rows, as long as you distance 6 tvachim, it would be okay. No, it has a din of a vineyard. It's too dense. We just imagine it as if every other row was pulled out. So according to the Rabbanan, we would say the same thing. If I sell saplings that are too dense to Marshall, we just view the middle rows as if they're not there, and it has a din of a orchard, and then Marshall would get the land underneath it as well. Therefore, when the din was that Marshall doesn't get any karka, that's only going according to Reb Shimon, who says since it's densely populated, it's not a vineyard. So here, since it's densely planted, I'm not selling him any of the land. It's not an orchard. Rather, it's only for him to pull it out and plant it somewhere else. Okay. Now we're going to learn the Mishnah Yomis now.
May I just ask, what does it mean if Veron as Hamsarim? What is the Hamsarim over here?
Let's say you have 3 rows of vines. We view the middle row as if it's not there.
And then there's 4 amos.
And then there's 4 amos.
And then we consider it.
And then it would have a din of a kerem, and you wouldn't be able to plant near the excrement
for 4 amos.
For 4 amos.
So, okay.
Now, as I was saying, First of all, shir on Motzoi Shabbos. Gedalia, what time is shir Motzoi Shabbos? Why did I have so much time unmuting? Let's see if I can.
10:30.
10:30. Oh, we're getting earlier, Rabbi Isai. 10:30 Motzei Shabbos, and then next week, throughout the week, shir is at 8:40. Again, getting earlier. So 8:40 next week, and 10:30 Motzei Shabbos. And now we're going to learn the Mishnah Yomis. Also, take a peek. It's already on TorahAnytime.com, Kalalash, and YouTube, a very interesting shir for the Shabbos table, Matas Masay. There's also the Q&A, in its 1 hour 32 fullness, is on YouTube as well. And now let us learn the Mishnah Yomis. This is 37, right?